The sun had barely risen over the quiet streets of Carmel by the sea, casting a soft golden hue over the picturesque town. Clint Eastwood, a man synonymous with strength and resilience, was enjoying his morning routine, an early walk through the serene streets of the place he had called home for years. The crisp ocean breeze carried the faint scent of salt and blooming flowers, grounding Clint in the simplicity of the moment. As he passed by one of the quaint local cafes, something caught his attention. Sitting on the sidewalk, leaning against a weathered stone wall, was a man who looked like he had been burdened by the weight of the world. His clothes were tattered, his hair unkempt, and his face bore the signs of hardship. Yet his eyes held a certain depth, a mix of sorrow and untold stories. Clint paused, his gaze fixed on the stranger. It wasn't pity that moved him, but curiosity, a deep-seated belief that everyone had a story worth hearing. Without hesitation, Clint stepped into the cafe and ordered 2 drinks, a black coffee for himself and a hot chocolate for the man outside. When Clint emerged from the cafe, the man looked up, his expression a mixture of surprise and caution. Clint extended the cup of hot chocolate toward him. "Here," he said, his voice calm yet commanding. "You look like you could use this." The man hesitated before taking the cup, his hands trembling slightly. "Thank you," he murmured, his voice barely audible. Clint settled on the bench beside him, sipping his coffee. "What's your name?" he asked, his tone casual, as if they were old friends catching up. The man hesitated before replying. "Leonard," he said, his voice rough, "but most people just call me, 'Hey, you.'" Clint chuckled softly. "Well, Leonard, I'm Clint." Leonard's eyes widened slightly as recognition dawned on him. "You're Clint Eastwood," he said, more a statement than a question. Clint nodded. "That's right, but today I'm just a guy having coffee with a new friend." He glanced at Leonard. "So what's your story?" Leonard stared at the ground, his hands wrapped tightly around the warm cup. "It's not much of a story," he said after a moment. "Just a series of bad decisions, bad luck, and bad timing." Clint didn't press him, allowing the silence to stretch. Eventually, Leonard spoke again, his words spilling out like a dam had broken. He told Clint about his life as a carpenter, the family he once had, and the string of misfortunes that led him to lose everything. As he spoke, Clint listened intently, offering no judgments, only understanding. By the time Leonard finished, the sun was higher in the sky, and the streets were bustling with life. Clint placed a hand on Leonard's shoulder. "You've been through hell," he said, "but you're still here. That means you've got a chance to turn things around." Leonard looked at Clint, a glimmer of hope flickering in his tired eyes. "Do you really think so?" he asked. Clint smiled. "I know so, and I'm going to help you." Clint Eastwood wasn't a man to make empty promises. When he told Leonard he would help, he meant it. The next morning, as the early fog lingered over Carmel by the sea, Clint arrived at the same spot outside the cafe. He carried a bag of essentials, a fresh set of clothes, a pair of sturdy boots, and some toiletries. Leonard, still groggy from sleeping on the cold stone bench, looked up in surprise. "You're serious about this, aren't you?" Leonard asked, his voice filled with both hope and disbelief. Clint handed him the bag. "I don't say things I don't mean," he replied simply. "Get cleaned up. There's a diner down the street with a decent restroom. I'll wait." Leonard hesitated, clutching the bag tightly. His eyes brimmed with gratitude, but also uncertainty. "Why are you doing this?" he finally asked. Clint didn't miss a beat. "Because someone once helped me when I was down," he said, his voice steady but tinged with emotion. "And because I believe in second chances." Leonard nodded, swallowing the lump in his throat. He disappeared into the diner, and when he returned half an hour later, he looked like a new man. The clothes fit well, and though his face still bore the marks of hardship, there was a spark in his eyes that hadn't been there before. "Feeling better?" Clint asked. Leonard nodded. Yeah, I do." "Good, when?" Clint said. "Let's get started." Clint drove Leonard to a workshop he owned on the outskirts of town, a modest but well-equipped space where he often tinkered with carpentry projects in his free time. The place smelled of sawdust and varnish, and the walls were lined with tools of every shape and size. "This is where we're going to start," Clint said as he opened the door. Leonard's eyes widened as he stepped inside. This, this is amazing, he said, running his hand along a workbench. I haven't been in a place like this in years. Clint smiled. Thought you might like it. Now let's see if those hands of yours remember how to work. Over the next few hours, Clint guided Leonard through small tasks, sanding a piece of wood, measuring and cutting planks, assembling a simple chair. At first, Leonard's movements were hesitant, his hands shaky from years of disuse. But as the day wore on, something remarkable happened. His confidence grew, and the rhythm of his work became more fluid. By the time the chair was complete, Leonard was grinning from ear to ear. I did it, he said, his voice filled with wonder. Clint clapped him on the back. Damn right you did. And that's just the beginning. Clint wasn't just interested in teaching Leonard carpentry. He wanted to help him rebuild his life from the ground up. Over the next few weeks, they worked side by side, crafting furniture that Clint sold to local shops. The money they earned went toward getting Leonard back on his feet. Clint also helped Leonard reconnect with local organizations that provided support for the homeless, securing him temporary housing. But the most significant transformation was in Leonard himself. The man who had once been consumed by despair was slowly rediscovering his sense of purpose. He started taking pride in his work, and his once slumped shoulders now carried the weight of determination. One afternoon, as they were finishing a particularly intricate piece, a beautifully carved rocking chair, Leonard turned to Clint. I don't know how to thank you, he said, his voice thick with emotion. You've given me more than I ever thought I'd have again. Clint shook his head. You're the one doing the work, Leonard. I just gave you a push. As Leonard's skills improved, Clint encouraged him to confront the parts of his past that still haunted him. One of those was his estranged daughter, Emily. Leonard hadn't seen or spoken to her in years, too ashamed of what his life had become to reach out. You can't move forward until you make peace with what's behind you, Clint told him one evening as they sat in the workshop. Leonard nodded, though the thought terrified him. What if she doesn't want to see me? He asked. Clint's gaze was steady. That's a risk you'll have to take, but at least you'll know you tried. With Clint's encouragement, Leonard wrote a letter to Emily, pouring his heart onto the page. He told her about his struggles, his regrets, and the changes he was trying to make. He didn't ask for forgiveness, only the chance to reconnect. A week later, a reply arrived. Leonard held the envelope in his trembling hands, too nervous to open it. Clint gave him a reassuring nod. Whatever it says, you've done something brave. When Leonard finally opened the letter, tears filled his eyes. Emily had written back, and though her words were cautious, they were filled with hope. She wanted to meet him. The day of the reunion was bright and sunny, with a gentle breeze carrying the scent of the sea. Clint drove Leonard to a small park where Emily had agreed to meet him. Leonard was a bundle of nerves, his hands fidgeting as they waited. When Emily arrived, Leonard froze. She was older now, a grown woman with a confident stride and a kind smile that reminded him of her mother. For a moment, neither of them spoke. Then Emily broke the silence. Hi, Dad, she said softly. Leonard's voice cracked as he replied, Hi, Emily. The two embraced, years of pain and regret melting away in that single moment. Clint watched from a distance, a small smile playing on his lips. He knew this was just the beginning of their journey, but it was a start, and that was all anyone could ask for. Leonard's reunion with Emily had given him a newfound sense of purpose. For the first time in years, he didn't feel like a ghost drifting through life. With Clint's steadfast mentorship and Emily's cautious but sincere support, Leonard was ready to take the next steps in rebuilding his life. Though life seemed to be falling into place, Leonard quickly realized the journey was far from over. The scars of his past weren't easily erased, and the world didn't always welcome someone trying to start over. Clint, ever the realist, prepared Leonard for the challenges ahead. One morning, as they worked on a custom dining table for a local boutique, Clint spoke up. Listen, Leonard, he began, his tone firm but kind. Things won't always be smooth. People are going to judge you for your past, and not everyone will believe in the man you're becoming. But you can't let that stop you. Leonard paused mid-sanding, nodding slowly. I've already felt it, he admitted. A few of the guys at the shelter look at me like I don't belong, like I'll never be anything more than a charity case. Clint set down his tools and looked Leonard square in the eye. Prove them wrong, he said simply. Not for them, but for you. One particularly harsh reminder of Leonard's past came unexpectedly. As he was delivering a set of handcrafted chairs to a local store, he ran into a former co-worker from his days in construction. The man, a burly figure named Mike, recognized Leonard immediately. "Well, I'll be damned," Mike said, his tone laced with surprise and a hint of disdain. "Leonard Carter. Thought you dropped off the face of the earth." Leonard straightened his shoulders, refusing to let the embarrassment creep in. "I'm still here," he replied evenly, "and working to make things right." Mike chuckled humorlessly. "Good luck with that. People don't forget, you know." Leonard felt the sting of the comment but didn't let it show. "Maybe not," he said quietly, "but I have to start somewhere." Later, as he recounted the encounter to Clint, Leonard admitted it had shaken him. "I don't know if I'll ever escape my mistakes," he said, his voice heavy with doubt. "You're not running from them, Leonard," Clint replied. "You're facing them, and that's what makes all the difference." As weeks turned into months, Leonard and Emily began to rebuild their relationship. Their meetings were filled with long talks, shared laughter, and even a few tears. Emily was cautious at first, but she couldn't deny the sincerity of her father's efforts. One weekend, Emily visited Leonard at Clint's workshop. She was amazed by the transformation she saw, not just in the furniture he crafted, but in the man himself. "Dad, these are incredible," she said, running her fingers over the smooth wood of a coffee table. Leonard beamed with pride. "It's all thanks to Clint," he said. "He gave me the tools and the guidance." Emily turned to Clint. "You've done so much for him. I don't know how to thank you." Clint waved her off with a smile. "Your dad did the hard work. I just pointed him in the right direction." As Leonard's confidence grew, so did his ambitions. One evening, over a cup of coffee in Clint's workshop, he hesitantly shared an idea. "I've been thinking," he began, "what if I started my own business? A small furniture repair and custom design shop?" Clint raised an eyebrow. "That's a big step," he said, "but I think you're ready for it." The two spent the next few weeks planning. Clint helped Leonard navigate the paperwork, find a small space to rent, and even spread the word in the community. Emily pitched in by designing a simple but elegant logo for the business, which Leonard named Carter's Creations. Opening day was a modest affair, but it was a milestone Leonard would never forget. Clint, Emily, and a handful of supportive locals showed up to celebrate. Leonard stood behind the counter, a mix of nerves and excitement coursing through him. "This is it," Clint said, clapping him on the back. "The start of something new." Word of Leonard's shop spread quickly, thanks in part to Clint's reputation in the community. Customers began trickling in, some out of curiosity, and others seeking high-quality craftsmanship. Leonard poured his heart into every piece he worked on, earning praise for his dedication and skill. But the true turning point came when Leonard decided to give back. He started offering free workshops for people in need, teaching them basic carpentry skills and helping them regain a sense of purpose. Much like Clint had done for him, the workshops became a hit, drawing participants from all walks of life. Leonard's story inspired others, and soon the community began to see him not as a man defined by his past, but as a symbol of resilience and redemption. One evening, as the sun set over Carmel, Clint stood outside Leonard's shop, watching through the window as his protege laughed and worked with a group of workshop participants. A sense of pride welled up in him. "You've done good, Leonard," he whispered to himself. "Damn good." For Clint, it wasn't just about helping one man. It was about the ripple effect, how one act of kindness could transform a life and inspire countless others. Leonard's journey to rebuild his life had been long and arduous, but as he stood in his workshop one crisp autumn evening, surrounded by the fruits of his labor and the warm laughter of his community, he realized that every struggle had been worth it. He was no longer defined by his failures, but by how he had risen above them. As Carter's creations continued to thrive, Leonard's reputation spread beyond Carmel. His unique designs and community-driven ethos caught the attention of a regional magazine, which featured his story in an article titled "The Craftsman's Redemption: How One Man Built a New Life." The article brought a surge of business, but it also brought something unexpected: a call from a national nonprofit organization. They were impressed by his workshops and wanted to partner with him to create a program that could be replicated in other communities. The proposition was daunting, but Leonard knew he couldn't pass it up. With Clint's encouragement and Emily's unwavering support, he agreed to the partnership. Soon he was traveling to nearby towns, sharing his story and teaching others how to use their hands and their determination to build something meaningful. As Leonard's work expanded, Emily found herself drawn deeper into her father's world. Inspired by his transformation, she decided to leave her corporate job and join him full-time. Together, they worked to scale the workshops and create materials that could reach even more people. One evening, as they sat in the workshop reviewing plans for a new program, Emily looked at her father with a mix of pride and amazement. "You've changed so much, Dad," she said softly. "Sometimes I can't believe you're the same person." Leonard smiled, his eyes misty. "I couldn't have done it without you, Emily. You gave me a reason to try." As the years went by, Leonard's efforts began to transform not just his own life, but the entire community. His workshops became a cornerstone of Carmel, attracting volunteers, donations, and media attention. People who had once dismissed him as a failure now saw him as a pillar of strength and resilience. One particularly memorable moment came during the town's annual festival. The mayor presented Leonard with a Community Service Award, recognizing his impact on the town and beyond. As Leonard stood on the stage looking out at the crowd, including Clint, Emily, and dozens of people he had helped, he felt a profound sense of fulfillment. "This isn't just about me," he said in his acceptance speech. "It's about all of us. Every person here has the power to make a difference, no matter where they've been or what they've done. I'm living proof of that." Clint had been Leonard's rock throughout his journey, but as time passed, the older man began to slow down. One evening over a cup of coffee in Leonard's workshop, Clint announced his decision to retire and move closer to his family. "You don't need me anymore, Leonard," Clint said with a grin. "You've got this." Leonard felt a pang of sadness, but knew Clint was right. "I wouldn't be here without you," he said, his voice thick with emotion. "You changed my life." Clint chuckled. "You changed your life, kid. I just gave you a nudge." With Clint's blessing, Leonard continued to grow his work. He and Emily expanded the nonprofit partnership, creating satellite programs in cities across the region. They even launched an online platform, making it possible for anyone, anywhere, to access their resources. Leonard also found time for himself, reconnecting with old friends and even exploring new hobbies. He started hiking in the nearby hills, finding peace in the beauty of nature, a stark contrast to the chaos of his former life. One day, Leonard received a letter from a young man who had attended one of his workshops. The letter described how the experience had helped him overcome his own struggles and find a new sense of purpose. "I didn't believe in myself until I met you," the letter read. "You showed me it's never too late to start over. Thank you for giving me hope." As Leonard read the letter, tears streamed down his face. It was a reminder of why he had started this journey, to prove that no one was beyond redemption and that even the smallest act of kindness could change a life. Years later, Leonard completed what he called his masterpiece, a massive wooden sculpture that now stands in the center of Carmel's town square. The sculpture, a towering tree with intertwining branches and leaves engraved with messages of hope, symbolizes the community's growth and resilience. At the base of the sculpture is a simple plaque that reads, "For those who believe in second chances and for those brave enough to take them." Leonard Carter's story became more than just a tale of personal redemption. It became a beacon of hope for countless others. Through his work, his relationships, and his unwavering determination, he proved that it's never too late to start over, and that even the most broken lives can be rebuilt into something beautiful. As he stood in the square one evening, watching children play near the sculpture and families gather around, Leonard felt a deep sense of peace. He had found his purpose, and in doing so, he had helped others find theirs. It wasn't the end of his story. It was just the beginning of a legacy that would live on for generations.